If you're thinking of borrowing money, don't. Not until you hear this story. Because what happened to Amaka is not just a warning, it's a full-blown curse in disguise. A beautiful woman, a mother, a fighter, reduced to tears and begging for survival. She only wanted to help her family. She only wanted her business to grow. But instead, she lost her shop. She lost her home. Her children were sent out of school, and she almost lost her life. All because of one decision, one loan, one signature, one moment of desperation. She didn't steal. She didn't do anything illegal. She only borrowed $500,000 from what looked like a helpful cooperative. And at first, everything seemed perfect, until her world began to crash, slowly, painfully, and deliberately. And by the time she realized what was happening, it was already too late. Her name is Amaka. This is her story. And it could be your story too. If you're not careful where you borrow money from. This is African Tales by Imade. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Amaka was one of those women people secretly admired from afar. She was the kind of woman who could multitask with grace, running her neatly arranged provision shop on a busy city street while keeping an eye on her children and still greeting her customers with a smile that said, "You're welcome, come again." Her shop was modest but full, crates of eggs lined up in rows, shelves stocked with baby milk, tissue paper, sugar, cornflakes, sachet water, and everything the average family needed. Her reputation in the area was solid. Her products were always available, clean, well-priced, and fresh. She had built it from scratch over 6 years, waking up at 4 a.m. daily, taking her goods to restock from the main market herself, and sometimes standing on her feet for 10 hours a day without rest. Her husband, Chibuzor, worked as a senior logistics officer in a private company. Though not a millionaire, his income, combined with Amaka's, kept the family very comfortable. Their 3 beautiful daughters attended a respectable school, they lived in a rented 3-bedroom apartment, and they could afford simple family outings on weekends. Everything seemed balanced, the type of middle-class life many people in Nigeria quietly prayed for. But if you passed by Amaka's shop often enough, you'd know there was something else she was known for, her outspoken hatred for loans. Whether it was digital loan apps or physical credit cooperatives, Amaka didn't want to hear it. Me? Borrow? Never. I've seen what happens to people who collect those loans. Their lives turn upside down. They'll be calling your phone like you're a criminal. They'll disgrace you online, even in front of your children and everyone. "Count me out," she once said boldly in front of customers. And she meant it. She had watched too many people in the neighborhood cry after taking loans they couldn't repay. Some lost their businesses, some lost their dignity, some even vanished from the area entirely. So Amaka made herself a silent vow. No matter how hard life gets, I will never borrow money. She was firm until life gave her a reason to reconsider. It started like a quiet cough that later turns into a full-blown fever. Chibuzor lost his job. The company folded without warning, and within one meeting, Amaka's husband was handed a brown envelope and told, "Thank you for your service." He came home that day unusually quiet. No handshake with the girls, no update about traffic or office drama, just silence. Amaka sat beside him at night and asked, "Are you okay?" That's when the truth came out. From that night, everything changed. Chibuzor tried. He sent out CVs. He attended interviews. But months passed, and the market was tight. Suddenly, all financial weight landed squarely on Amaka's shoulders. Her once vibrant shop was now carrying the responsibility of rent, feeding, electricity, school fees, medicals, and emergency needs, all at once. Her business began to feel the weight. Slowly but surely, her stock started drying up. Customers would come in and say, "Madam, you no get golden morn. No peak milk today? Why your shelves day empty like this?" And she would smile awkwardly, give excuses, and promise to restock by next week. But next week never came, because the money just wasn't enough. Her 3 daughters, all under the age of 12, were sent home from school multiple times. At first, the school management sympathized. Then they became cold. Eventually, the girls stopped going altogether. Amaka did all she could, borrowed small amounts from neighbors, from women's meetings, even from a distant cousin, but it was never enough. Then Veronica, her closest friend and customer, began to whisper again. Just borrow 500,000 naira. You don't need more. Use 200,000 naira to settle school fees and use 300,000 naira to restock your shop. You'll bounce back fast. You're hardworking. It's not like you won't pay. Amaka resisted, as always. No, Vero, I've heard too many bad things. I'll manage. But Veronica was persistent, encouraging, almost convincing. She would say, not all loan companies are wicked, Amaka. Some are structured. The reason people suffer is because they borrow too much or use it carelessly. You're wise. Just take a small one. Pay it back little by little. Even her husband Chibuzor warned her. No matter how bad things get, don't go near those people. They're not ordinary. Some of these organizations are demonic. They will eat your soul and still demand payment. Amaka tried to listen, but every day the pressure grew heavier. Until one day, she snapped. It was a Wednesday afternoon. The house rent was overdue. The shop was nearly empty. The children were sitting at home watching cartoons with worn-out uniforms folded on the chair. Amaka stood at the door of her shop, staring at the dusty shelves and asking herself, what is all this? What kind of life is this? She took a deep breath, picked up her phone, and dialed the number Veronica had sent her over a month ago. A soft male voice answered, Good afternoon, Ma. Welcome to Odogwu Credit Cooperative. How may we help you? That same week, she walked into their office. Clean white walls, air conditioning, smiling receptionists, men in suits. Everything looked legit. They explained the repayment plan with charm and clarity. 500,000 naira 5 repaid over 6 months, with only 50,000 naira interest per month. They gave her a document. She read it over and over. No hidden fees? None at all, Ma. Odogwu Credit is built on transparency and empowerment. She hesitated, but eventually she signed. They took her photo, her fingerprint, her BVN, her address. They even sent someone to verify her shop location and her apartment address. 3 days later, the money landed in her account. Amaka felt relief she hadn't felt in over a year. She ran to pay part of the school fees, paid the landlord something to hold him off, restocked her shop. Milk, cereal, canned tomatoes, soft drinks, detergent, everything the customers used to love. The shop was busy again. Life felt normal, but it was only the calm before the storm. The morning sun filtered through the tiny curtain in Amaka's living room. For the first time in a long time, there was light in her eyes. Her shop, once dry and depressing, was now packed again. Her shelves were full, soft drinks in rows, milk stacked perfectly, biscuit cartons arranged by the counter. New customers even started showing up again. Old ones who had given up on her were now returning. Neighbors smiled at her again. Mothers stopped by to chat. Some joked, Madam Amaka Dawn hit jackpot. She would smile, but only she knew the truth. She didn't hit a jackpot. She borrowed it. Her children returned to school. Their faces lit up when she handed them their school bags that Monday morning. Their headmistress even welcomed them back with a warm smile. Chibuzor hugged her that night and said, You're strong. I didn't want you to borrow from those people, but thank you for standing strong for this family. Amaka didn't say much. She just smiled. But inside, her heart was counting, calculating. She had already saved the first installment and was prepared to walk into the Odogwu Credit Cooperative office that week. She wanted to show them she was not like the others. She would pay, she would keep her word, and she would never be disgraced. She did just that. She paid 91,700 cash at their reception. They smiled and gave her a receipt printed on high-quality paper. Thank you for keeping your word, Madam Amaka. Odogwu Credit is proud of customers like you. It felt good. She went home feeling relieved, confident. But what she didn't know was that the very moment she left their office, they began their work. Because Odogwu Credit Cooperative wasn't an ordinary organization, behind the polished floors and soft music was a dark, spiritual machine built not to help people, but to bind them. Every repayment made only fed their power. Every signature signed was a covenant sealed, but Amaka didn't know. She was living on borrowed peace, and the clock was ticking. The second month rolled in faster than expected. Amaka was sure she had done everything right. She saved again. Sales were coming in, not as fast as the first month, but still decent. But then, it started. First, her deep freezer stopped working. She called an electrician who charged her 18,000 nairas for repairs. It came out of her savings. Then a box of milk she ordered arrived damaged. Rain had beaten it in transit. That was over 30,000 nairas gone. Then, just 1 week before the second repayment was due, her last daughter, Chinonye, developed a high fever and rash. They rushed her to a private clinic. Tests, injections, and medication cost another 24,000 nairas. The savings she had carefully built disappeared in 3 days. She cried that night. Sitting on the floor of her room, calculator in hand, trying to rearrange the little left in her account. Chibuzor sat beside her, silent. "I just need time," she whispered. "I'll gather something by weekend." He looked at her. "Amaka, how long do you want to keep doing this?" She didn't answer. Instead, she tried to hold herself together. She would go to the market tomorrow. She would sell. She would beg if she had to. She managed to raise 50,000 nairas, went to their office, and begged them to accept it. They took it, without argument, and told her she could pay the balance the following week. She left relieved. But she should have worried, because by the time she returned home, she had already been marked as inconsistent. And that's when the real sabotage began. Week by week, strange things started happening. Customers would come to her shop and randomly complain about products that had never caused issues before. Some claimed her sugar had ants. Others returned detergent saying it wasn't foaming. One even accused her of selling expired milk, a carton she had just bought the day before. The most loyal customer in her area, Mama Uduak, stopped coming altogether. Amaka sent someone to check on her, only to find out the woman now buys from a new shop 2 streets away. Then her fridge packed up again. Then her supplier sent the wrong order and refused to exchange. Then her daughter's school called again. The balance they thought was waived wasn't. Her shop, which had been full 3 months ago, now had visible holes again. Chibuzor couldn't hide his frustration anymore. "Amaka, I told you. These people are not ordinary. You think it's normal for everything to be falling apart like this, one by one?" She snapped. "Do you think this is what I wanted? You think I enjoyed borrowing money? I did this for our children, for us. I didn't have a choice." Went silent. The children were watching from the corridor. That night, Amaka checked her phone. She had missed 7 calls, all from the Odogwu Credit Office. Her WhatsApp had a new message. "Dear Mrs. Amaka, kindly note your repayment for this month is incomplete. Failure to complete the balance will result in interest adjustments. Thank you for choosing Odogwu." The next morning, her friend Veronica sent her a voice note. It was cheerful. "Hey babe, hope you're good-o. Just wanted to say I've landed. We're finally in Canada. Everything went smoothly. God is faithful." Amaka paused. Her hands trembled. Veronica had relocated abroad, with her family, quietly, smoothly. But this same Veronica, who had the means to fund her own international relocation, couldn't lend her friend 500,000 naira. Instead, she pushed her into the arms of Odogwu Credit Cooperative. Tears welled in Amaka's eyes. Her mouth hung open, but no words came out. She felt betrayed, used, and abandoned. She had no strength left to cry. It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind that used to be busy for Amaka, customers streaming in to buy drinks, snacks, baby items for the weekend. But that Saturday, the shop was dry. Only 2 customers walked in between 8 a.m. and noon. One of them left angrily when Amaka told her she didn't have bottled water. Even her neighbor, Madam Chinwe, who usually bought cartons of juice for her church, had gone elsewhere. Amaka sat on the low stool in front of her shop, staring into space, trying to calculate how much she needed to complete that month's repayment. She had 23,000 naira saved. She needed 91,700 nairas again. Then she heard her name, loud and shocking. "Mrs. Amaka Eze." "Yes, you. Come outside, Mia." She froze. A small white Sienna had pulled up in front of her shop. 2 men in black t-shirts stepped out. No logo, no ID, just black shades and confident arrogance. They held a brown folder with her name printed across the front, and before she could stand up or say anything, one of them turned to the gathering neighbors and announced, "This woman you see here owes money. She has refused to pay. We're looking for her husband too, since both of them want to run." Amaka's soul left her body. "Please, keep your voice down," she whispered, rising. But the man raised his phone and began recording. "Madam, no deform innocent, you borrow, you must pay, simple." Neighbors gathered. Phones came out. Some looked away in pity. Others whispered, "So this madam too day owe." A few kids laughed. Her heart beat in her ears. Her palms were sweaty. Her legs shook. She wanted the ground to open. Chibuzor was at home. Her daughters would soon return from lesson. She begged, "I've been trying. I'm not running. I've paid something every month." The second man interrupted. "That's not how loan works. You signed a contract, and if you can't pay, we'll start posting your name and picture online." That's when the tears came. "Please, my children are still in school. Please don't do this to me." But they weren't listening. They only left when one of her neighbors, an elderly man named Papa Ndubuisi, stepped forward and gave them 10,000 nairos. "Take this and leave this woman alone. You people are heartless." They took it, left, but not before spitting on the ground. "We'll be back next week. If you don't pay up, your name enters Facebook." That night, Amaka didn't sleep. She lay on her bed, face to the wall, while her daughters slept beside her. Chibuzor sat by her side, silent, holding her hand. "Veronica blocked me," she whispered. "What?" "I tried to message her. She's not replying. I think she's blocked me." Her voice cracked. "She had money, Chibuzor. She could have helped me. Instead, she set me up and disappeared." Chibuzor's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. What could he say? Amaka continued, "I thought I was strong. I thought I could handle this. But I feel like I'm dying. I see people passing by my shop and pointing. They think I'm a thief." She broke down. Her cries were deep, silent sobs, the kind that come from a place no medicine can heal. The next morning, her shop was egged. Someone had smashed raw eggs on her shutter door and written in chalk, "Pay what you owe." She fell to the ground. Shop owners nearby watched in pity but said nothing. Everyone was afraid of Odogwu Credit. Their field agents had become notorious in the area, bold, fearless, and untouchable. She went to the police. They said it was a civil matter. She tried to call the cooperative's office. No answer. That week, Chibuzor's phone line got hacked. His WhatsApp started sending out spam messages, asking for money, begging friends, embarrassing him. The final straw? Their children were sent home again. The school management said they were already being lenient. No payment, no entry. Weeks passed. The shop was now completely dry. Amaka sat there every morning out of habit, hoping someone would stop by. But no one did. Some customers now avoided eye contact. Others walked past deliberately. She tried to borrow again, from church friends, from neighbors, even from people she once helped financially. But once the name Odogwu Credit Cooperative came up, everyone said the same thing. "Ah, madam, sorry. I don't want their wahala near me." Her daughters, once lively and playful, had become withdrawn. They stayed indoors all day, sometimes watching the same cartoons over and over. Sometimes they fought for food. Then one day, 2 of them fell sick. High fever, vomiting, fatigue. Amaka took them to the clinic, but she couldn't afford the tests. She begged to be allowed to pay in bits, but the nurse shook her head. "Sorry, Ma. We've had too many people disappear. We need payment first." She walked home with her daughters, half carrying one of them, praying silently that it wasn't typhoid or something worse. By nightfall, both girls were shivering uncontrollably. She sat with them all night, changing towels, using hot water, giving paracetamol. She didn't sleep. Chibuzor came back from an odd job he picked up, dusty, tired, angry. "How long are we going to live like this?" She didn't answer, because by then, she had already started bleeding from her nose. By the time morning came, her pressure had risen, her lips were dry, her eyes bloodshot. But the phone didn't stop ringing. Odogwu Credit was calling again. 3 weeks had passed since her daughters fell sick. They had gotten slightly better, but it had nothing to do with hospital treatment. Amaka couldn't afford labs, so she resorted to leftover drugs from old prescriptions and hot herbal mixtures passed down from her late mother. Every night she would wake up around 2 a.m., staring into the ceiling with swollen eyes and an aching chest. Her BP had officially become uncontrollable. But what finally shattered her spirit was not sickness. It was the final visit from her shop landlord. He didn't come with threats. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply walked in one hot afternoon, stood inside the dry, echoing shop, looked around the empty shelves and said, "Madam Amaka, I really like you. You're a good woman. But this place is a business, not charity. You have paid rent in 5 months. I've waited. I've hoped. But I can't wait anymore." Amaka opened her mouth but said nothing. "By end of this month, please move your things out." She nodded slowly, and that was the end of it. That evening, as she swept the dusty shop floor one last time, she let the tears fall freely. She remembered when she first got the space, how proud she was, how she took a selfie beside the freshly painted yellow walls. She even remembered the first carton of Indomie she ever sold. She turned the signboard upside down, locked the door, and walked away. Neighbors watched in silence. Nobody said a word. Pity was now a silent language in the area. Chibuzor returned from a menial job with 3,500 nairas in his pocket. He met Amaka sitting in the backyard, tying sachets of peanuts into small nylons. "What's all this?" he asked, his eyes heavy. Amaka didn't look up. "I went to the market, bought gari, sugar, groundnut. I'll package it myself. I'll start hawking tomorrow." "Hawking?" he asked, standing still. "Yes. I already have small packs of Zobo and bottled water in the kitchen too. I'll carry them in a bowl, go to parks, market gates, junctions, anywhere people gather." Chibuzor didn't know whether to scream, cry, or salute her. "You're not doing this, Amaka. This isn't the life you deserve." "It's not about what I deserve anymore, Chibuzor," she said softly. "It's about what's left." The next morning, she woke up before dawn. Boiled water, bottled Zobo, packed small nylon bags of roasted groundnut and sugary gari mix. She wore a simple Ankara wrapper and a plain black top, wore flat slippers, tied a small scarf, carried her bowl and stepped out as the sky was still purple. Nobody knew it was her, at first. She stood near the park gate offering sachets to bus drivers and conductors. "Buy Zobo, buy peanut. Very chilled, very cheap." At 10 a.m., someone recognized her. "Wait, no be Madam Amaka? The woman we get that fine provision shop?" She froze. She turned slowly. It was a boy she once gave biscuits to for free. Now he was looking at her with pity and confusion. By afternoon, 3 other people had recognized her. By evening, her phone had messages. Odogwu Credit had found out. "We hear you're now hawing. Good. You can hawk to come and pay our balance. You're still owing 800,000 naira. Your interest keeps increasing if you don't pay." She threw the phone across the room. It cracked, and she didn't care. On Sunday morning, Amaka dressed up for church. Not because she felt spiritual, but because she needed to see if anyone would help. She wore a simple gown, tied her scarf well, powdered her face slightly, and held her daughter's hands as they walked into the compound of Heaven's Way Bible Church. They used to sit in the second row when things were good. Now they sat at the back near the fan. After praise and worship, the pastor took prayer points. Then he said something that pierced her. "If you're in debt today, if people are chasing you, come forward and kneel at the altar. We want to break every chain of embarrassment in your life." The entire hall fell silent. Chibuzor touched her hand. She looked away. Then slowly, with her heart thumping, Amaka stood up and walked to the altar. As she knelt, she could feel eyes burning into her skin. Some people whispered, some pointed. She closed her eyes and held her chest. Then the pastor prayed and prophesied. Amaka wished she could melt into the floor. After service, nobody greeted her, not even the women in her unit. She walked home with her daughters in silence. That night, she did not speak. She did not eat. She just stared at the ceiling as Chibuzor gently rubbed her back. "I'll find a way, Amaka. I promise you. We will not die here." She nodded, but deep inside, she felt already buried. It was a Wednesday night. Heavy clouds gathered in the sky, and for the first time in a long time, Amaka didn't even care that it was about to rain. She was sitting outside their rented apartment, the one they hadn't paid rent on in 8 months, staring into the darkness, lost in thought. A small plastic stool sat under her, and her scarf was slipping off her tired head. Her 3 daughters were inside, sleeping on the mat they now shared in the corner of the sitting room. Chibuzor was away for a night job, offloading cement at a warehouse for 4,000 naira. His palms had started to peel from lifting heavy bags. The compound was quiet, too quiet. Then, she heard a faint whistle, not musical, not playful. It was rhythmic, cold, intentional. Amaka stood up and looked around. No one. She stepped back inside, bolted the door, and sat on the bare floor. The clock said 2:13 a.m. Then it came again. A knock. Not on her main door, but on the back window. 3 slow knocks. Goom! Goom! Boom! She froze. The children stirred. One of them coughed weakly in her sleep. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. She crawled to the window and pushed the curtain aside. Nothing. But just as she was about to sit down again, she saw something in the dark across the fence. A man in all black, standing still, watching her. She screamed. Chibuzor wasn't home. She had no airtime. She grabbed her Bible from under her pillow and began to pray loudly, sweating and shaking. "Father Lord, if I perish, but deliver me from the hands of the wicked." After 20 minutes of non-stop prayer, she looked again. The figure was gone. When Chibuzor returned that morning and she told him what happened, he didn't even look surprised. He just stood quietly, arms folded. "Amaka, I didn't want to say this before, but this thing is beyond business. It's not normal." She looked at him, heart pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this cooperative, this Odogwu Credit, is not just a financial organization. It's something else." She frowned. "How do you know?" Chibuzor walked into the room, opened his drawer, and brought out a folded paper. "One of the men who used to work at their office came to meet me. He left the country months ago, but before he traveled, he told me something strange. He said anyone who takes their loan signs something beyond what's written on the paper." Amaka's blood ran cold. "Beyond?" Chibuzor nodded. "He said there's a spiritual covenant attached, a contract in the spirit that ensures you keep paying, not just for 6 months, but for as long as they want. If you try to escape, they don't just ruin your finances, they ruin your life." Amaka sat down slowly. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why things started falling apart from the 4th month. Why her children kept getting sick. Why her shop dried up again. Why Veronica, who introduced her to them, ran off to Canada silently. Tears flooded her eyes. "So I sold my peace, my future, for 500,000 naira? Chibuzor walked to her and knelt down. "We're going to fight back, but not with money this time." They visited 4 churches that week. The first one said they were too busy. The second asked for 150,000 naira before they could be booked for deliverance. The third one gave them oil and said, "Just pray and God will help you." But it was the 4th one, a small chapel tucked behind a broken school wall, that finally held something different. The pastor was not flamboyant. He wore a plain white robe and had soft eyes that looked like he could see through you. They waited for hours before he saw them. When Amaka finally sat in front of him and narrated everything, he remained silent for several minutes. Then he stood up slowly, walked into a small prayer room, and returned with a wrapped scroll. He unrolled it. It had names, hundreds of names. At the bottom of the scroll were these words: "Bound by debt, fed by blood." Chibuzor gasped. Amaka covered her mouth. The pastor said, "This scroll was revealed to me 2 years ago in a vision. It contains the spiritual names of everyone who has entered into covenant with Odogwu Credit Cooperative. Their physical office is a facade. The real engine is a demonic network that operates with an altar built on suffering. Every time you make a payment, it feeds them. And when you can't pay, they feed on your pain. Amaka began to shake. But how do I come out? The pastor looked at her, eyes gentle but firm. Deliverance is possible, but it requires total surrender, serious prayer, and sacrifice. You will need to be cleansed. You must also be ready to lose everything physically in order to win spiritually. Amaka cried, "I've already lost everything." "Then you're ready." He asked them to return at midnight for a 3-day fasting and deliverance prayer. No calls, no distractions. As they walked home, Chibuzor held her hand tightly. "We'll fight this together. I don't care what it takes." And for the first time in a long time, Amaka smiled. A small, tired smile, but it was real. The tiny chapel was pitch dark when Amaka and Chibuzor arrived at 11:45 p.m. No electricity, no generator, just the soft flicker of an oil lamp burning in the center of the altar. The pastor was already waiting, barefoot, dressed in a plain white robe, Bible in one hand, anointing oil in the other. "You must not return home tonight," he said. "Until this battle is over, you must stay here, surrounded by prayer." They nodded. 3 other intercessors entered from the back, 2 elderly women and 1 young man, all dressed in white. "You must not sleep," one of the women said, "not even for a second. The spirit of debt will try to suffocate you when it senses freedom coming." At 12:07 a.m., the prayers began. It started slow, soft scriptures, light tongues, but within 30 minutes, the atmosphere changed. Amaka started coughing. Not the normal kind. This was deep, violent, choking. Chibuzor tried to hold her, but the pastor pulled him away. "Let her go through it. She's breaking from bondage." Amaka collapsed. Her eyes turned upward. Her hands twisted. The intercessors began shouting louder. "Every spiritual agreement made in ignorance, break by fire. Every name written on the altar of financial destruction, we blot you out by the blood of Jesus." Suddenly, Amaka screamed. Her voice was not hers. It was deeper, male, ancient, echoing across the chapel walls. "She signed it. She belongs to us," the voice roared. "Odogwu does not lose, not without a price." Then silence. Amaka's body went limp. The pastor anointed her forehead, and then she opened her eyes and whispered, "I saw it." Amaka lay on the chapel floor, weak but alert. Tears streamed from her eyes. "I saw where they keep us, all of us." The pastor leaned forward. "Tell us what you saw." Her voice trembled. "It was like a bank, but not like any I've seen. Tall black towers, giant statues made of coins, blood flowing through ATM machines." Chibuzor stared. There was a long hall, people in suits, but their faces were hollow. They wore smiles that didn't move. They held scrolls, thousands of scrolls, each glowing red. She continued. "Then I saw a massive throne. Seated on it was a woman, dressed in a red corporate suit, but her face, it kept changing. Sometimes she was Veronica, then she became one of the Odogwu staff, then her eyes turned all black. Her body shook. She reached into a pool of gold coins and pulled out people's tongues, hearts, and tied them to loan receipts. I saw mine there, with my signature glowing." Then she looked at me and smiled. She said, "Even if you leave Lagos with your legs, your name stays here, unless you pay the price." Amaka broke into tears again. The chapel went silent. The pastor placed his hand on her chest. "This is not just financial debt, it's spiritual bondage. But you've been seen tonight, and you will be freed." The final prayer ended at 3:44 a.m. Amaka collapsed in exhaustion and slept right there on the floor. The next morning, Amaka and Chibuzor returned home. Their daughters ran to hug them, hungry, tired, confused. But something felt different. There was peace in Amaka's spirit, but that peace came with a price. 2 days later, their landlord came again. This time, he was holding papers. "You people have tried, but I cannot help you anymore. The building is old and I have a new tenant waiting. Please vacate before Sunday." Amaka nodded without protest. She had no more fight in her. And for once, she wasn't afraid. She told the children to start packing their few belongings. There wasn't much: a mattress with broken foam, 3 plastic buckets, torn books and old clothes, and the framed photo from their wedding, now cracked. That weekend they left Lagos. No car, no van, just 3 polythene bags, 1 travel bag, and each child holding a bottle of sachet water. No one from the compound came to say goodbye. As they stepped onto the bus headed for Enugu, back to their village, Amaka turned around one last time. She saw the shop, the school, the church, the pharmacy where she once laughed with her daughters. Gone. Everything was gone. But at least, she still had her soul. The journey to Chibuzor's hometown in Udi, Enugu State, was long, dusty, and painfully quiet. Chibuzor sat beside her in the rickety bus, holding their youngest daughter on his lap. Amaka sat by the window, staring blankly at trees that passed in slow motion. Her other 2 daughters leaned against her shoulders asleep, their tiny hands gripping her wrapper like a lifeline. The bus smelled of engine oil and sweat. The music from the driver's radio crackled and skipped. They didn't even have 100 naira for bottled water, so the family shared 3 sachet water every few hours. Nobody said a word for most of the journey. By the time they reached the red, dusty road leading into their family compound, the sun had already started to set. His uncle's wife, Mama Nena, came out of the mud kitchen barefoot when she saw them walking in. "Amaka? Chai? Is this you?" Amaka smiled faintly and knelt. "Good evening, Auntie." The woman looked at the children, dusty, sweaty, skinny. She looked at Chibuzor, sunken face, cracked lips, torn slippers. Then she hugged Amaka tightly and Chibuzor and then whispered, "I don't know what chased you from Lagos, but it's okay. This compound still belongs to your father." They were given a single room behind the main building. No fan, no ceiling, no mattress. Just a woven mat, an old kerosene stove, and a broken stool. That night, they slept on the floor, all 5 of them huddled together like refugees. But for the first time in months. No one called Amaka's phone. No one knocked on her door. No one asked for payment. No one spat on her. No one posted her face online. There was only silence and peace. And peace, though painful, was precious. Days turned into weeks. Amaka began farming with her husband's auntie, planting cassava and maize in the backyard. She would wake at 5 a.m., wrap her wrapper tightly around her waist, and carry a hoe on her shoulder like a village woman. But she didn't mind. She was free. Chibuzor helped out with carpentry jobs in the neighboring village. He would walk 4 kilometers each day, returning at night with sore feet but a soft smile. Their daughters began to adjust to village life, chasing goats, picking mangoes, and bathing in the stream. One Sunday afternoon, Amaka sat under the mango tree behind the house, peeling cocoyam. Her daughters sat beside her, helping with the peels. A woman from the next compound passed by and called out, "Amaka, you've come home finally?" She smiled. "Yes, I've come home." "But why did you leave Lagos? What happened?" Amaka paused. Then she looked up slowly, her voice calm but full of weight. "We chased money. It chased us back. We lost everything. Everything but our souls." The woman nodded slowly, then walked away in silence. Amaka looked at her daughters, laughing over whose peel was longer, and her eyes filled with tears. But this time, they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of mercy. That evening, she pulled out a tiny jotter from her bag, one she had carried from Lagos. She opened to a fresh page and wrote in careful cursive, "My name is Amaka. I borrowed 500,000 naira, and I paid with everything. Let this page be a warning. Not all money is financial. Some debts are spiritual. Some signatures are agreements. Some cooperatives are covenants. Be careful where you borrow money from." She folded the jotter and placed it in a small tin under her pillow. A seed of wisdom, a note for the next generation. Amaka walks down a red, dusty road at sunrise, alone, her wrapper tied tight, her scarf neatly knotted. As she walks past the village well, a young girl stops her. "Auntie, weren't you the one that used to sell Peak milk and Capri Sun in that big shop in Lagos near my auntie's house? I normally come spend holiday with them." Amaka smiles gently. "Yes, that was me. Why did you stop?" She pauses, looks at the girl with soft, wise eyes. "Because some blessings are better lost than owned." She walks away slowly. The wind sways the mango trees behind her. The next day was quiet. The sky above Udi was unusually clear, blue like silk, the sun gentle and warm. Amaka had just finished sweeping the compound when Chibuzor returned early from the village carpenter's shed. He looked tired as usual, dusty, sweaty, but there was something strange in his eyes. Amaka noticed it immediately. "You didn't even change before coming home?" she asked, smiling faintly. Chibuzor didn't speak. He walked straight into the room, pulled out the small phone they had been sharing, and held it up to her. "Come and see." Amaka leaned over the dimly lit screen. An unread email from UK Health Workforce Immigration Board. Subject, "Congratulations, sponsorship approved." Her hands trembled. She clicked it. The message was short, but it was real. "Dear Mr. Chibuzor Eze, we are pleased to inform you that your prior application for the NHS support worker role has been shortlisted for sponsorship. You and your immediate family are eligible for full relocation support under the Tier 2 Skilled Worker Visa Scheme. Kindly confirm interest to proceed with documentation within 7 days. Amaka froze. "Is this real?" she whispered. Chibuzor nodded slowly, his eyes welling with tears. "Hope, Amaka, it's real. This is the same application I did over a year ago, before I lost my job. I thought they had forgotten, but God didn't." Amaka dropped the broom. Her legs gave way. She sat on the floor and burst into tears. This time, not tears of pain, tears of joy, relief, shock. The girls ran in, confused but smiling. "What happened, Mommy?" Amaka laughed through her tears. "Pack your books. We're going to start school again. But this time, in a new place." They didn't understand, but they hugged her. All three of them, wrapping their tiny arms around their mother, who was now weeping and laughing at once. 2 weeks later, a small gathering at the village bus stop. Amaka and Chibuzor, dressed neatly in second-hand travel jackets donated by church members, stood holding their daughter's hands. A community elder prayed over them. A small group of villagers cheered as the family entered the Sienna that would take them to Enugu Airport. As the vehicle pulled away, Amaka leaned out of the window, waving. Her scarf fluttered in the wind. She looked at the mango tree at the bend, the one she used to sit under and peel cocoyam, and she smiled. She thought it was the end, but God was just beginning. She lost everything, shop, house, dignity, but she never lost her soul. And in the silence of the village, after all the noise of Lagos, after the tears, the fasting, the hawking, the call came. The door opened. The page turned. Because sometimes, the miracle doesn't come before the storm. It comes after the ashes. To everyone watching this, not every open door is a blessing. Some are spiritual traps, painted with paperwork, dressed in promises, and sealed with destruction. Be careful where you borrow money from, because some loans don't just take your cash, they take your peace, your health, your family, and your future. Always pray before you sign. Not every financial solution is God's direction. And when life breaks you down, don't lose hope, because when the world says it's over, grace can still say, "I'm just getting started." Dear viewer, if this story touched you, if you felt the pain in Amaka's tears, if you saw your own struggles in her journey, then pause for a moment and type this in the comments. I will never borrow blindly. I believe grace will find me. This is not just a story, it's a lesson, it's a mirror, and for someone out there, it's a wake-up call. Don't keep this story to yourself. Someone you love might be one signature away from destruction. Share this video with them now. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We tell stories that protect souls and preserve destinies. So click that red button and join the African Tales by Imade family. See you in the next story.